This is the third in my series of videos about why our schools don't work, why they won't work, and why they can't work. This is about the 7 challenges. Previously we had the 7 invisible assumptions. Well, the 7 challenges are in response to those 7 false assumptions we hold about the nature of children and how they learn. But it's not intended to correct and reform our system of education, because I don't believe it can be done. But we do have to correct and reform our attitude about what education is, and what is the nature of children, and how they learn, and what their rights are. I feel I'm introducing children's rights for the first time. Well, maybe other people have mentioned it, but not very seriously. The notion of children's rights are 2 words that shouldn't be uttered in the same sentence. Because children aren't supposed to have rights. Well, I don't know how we can teach them to grow up to respect themselves and their rights as they become adults. At what point do they earn rights? What point do they become real people? Anyway, let's go over the 7 challenges that we have to do to get out of this mess we're in. Number 1, we have to replace standard curriculum and scheduled promotion with personal curriculum, self-study, and competency-based advancement. You'll find all these words separately in the dialogue about education reform, but when you string them all together like that, it takes on a very heavy significance. And I'm going to read it to you again. Replace standard curriculum and scheduled promotion with personal curriculum, self-study, and competency-based advancement. That's a radical step, because we don't really think that our children are capable of handling such responsibility. Number 2 comes right behind it. Challenge number 2 reads, replace unison instruction with reactive teachers individually coaching proactive students. That's where the rubber really meets the road, if you want to take those words literally, not just as some latest new fad that educators are famous for doing. Slogans and programs and pronouncements that are a substitute for what they really represent. By saying it and talking about it, it's a substitute for doing it. Proactive students. Well, all teachers would say, all students are proactive. All my kids are, but they're not. The teachers are proactive. When the teachers become reactive, they respond to the expressed needs and interests of students, as if they are not to speak unless spoken to. Can you imagine a situation where a teacher sits in the corner of the room and waits for somebody to come up and ask him something? But you have to begin to try to empty your mind of all the images of school as being classrooms with same-age students being taught a standard curriculum in unison according to fit, schedule, promoted automatically. My mantra. But that's really the way it is. we, as our first assumption, my first assumption stated, children don't like to learn. Well, that is the basis for all the dialogue about the attempts to save our schools, which I'm not interested in doing. I don't think that we're saving, but anyway, they certainly are interested in saving themselves. As long as we believe that there is no possible alternative, then I guess we've got to play that game. It's a game that's been going on for years, and it's gotten nowhere. Nobody has won. So that's pretty strong stuff. Number 3, replace instruction-based academic credit hours with competency-based credit ratings or rankings. That is the chicken and egg thing. We teach kids in unison, sitting at their seat for a fixed number of hours, and then give them credit for having endured that experience. And that goes on their record, and then they get that is their ticket for getting into college if they have the proper number of credits. Well, it's hard to find any educator that thinks the credit system is accurate or usable or realistic, but nobody knows what else to do. Well, if we can develop a system of enumerating or classifying competency, real live competency, not how long you sat in your butt in a chair and had it force fed to you, but what you can actually do. Because the reality is that kids who are interested in really learning something will learn it a tenth the time as their disinterested classmates are who sit beside them and are lectured to insufferably until the teacher decides that they've learned most of what they've been taught. Our assumption number 4. And that's, I don't see any evidence this has ever been done. Do you think it's possible that a credit, a resume, instead of being a description of what you've done, or at least limited to that, has at the top a long string of codes which indicates all the things you're really proficient at and could expect to be paid to do. So that's a very interesting process, and I hope to be part of that. Maybe we can start doing that, figuring out how to do that. The next challenge is end K through 12 age segregation and academic school years. Well, by having school years and in high school, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors, this locks you into a teaching-based academic production process. So by ending the school year, for instance, then there is no need to limit academic work to what is deemed age appropriate. I see school, and we'll discuss this later on, I see children entering school on their birthday of the equivalent year. If high school is deemed to be age 15, 16, 17, and 18, then perhaps they should enter high school on their 15th birthday, the date of their birth on their 15th birthday. And then they graduate on their 19th birthday, whatever day that comes upon. So you have, in effect, you have graduation going on year-round. So age segregation is okay for social purposes, or maybe for sports, for having it kind of categorize physical development so that you haven't got 15-year-olds playing soccer against 18-year-olds. That's okay. We can age segregation there is worthy. So once you free that get out of that trap, then you can start educating children individually, and can begin to recognize that children of the same age are not all the same, as we outlined in number 2 of our assumptions. And number 5, extend the school campus physically out into the community and acquire a large cadre of certified volunteers to act as teachers. Well, this is the first thing I do is get the teachers union the hell out of here. That ain't going to happen unless you get rid of the teachers union. To limit children's exposure and interaction with adults of all different trades and backgrounds and interests and skills and talents, to expose them to that directly, you have to open the damn doors and let the adults come in. Let all kinds of interesting people come into the school and work with kids. And at the same time, the students should be out traveling around the countryside. In subsequent video, we're going to talk about The Loop, which is a series of educational venues, including all schools and libraries and facilities in the community that might be of interest to students and as part of their education process. And this is a bizarre notion for educators, because the doors are firmly locked, and outsiders are not allowed inside in the classroom without coming to the front desk and registering and being supervised by a minder who takes them around the school and whatever business they need to do there, and then get the heck out. Because already I attempted to volunteer in 6 high schools and until as a test, and I found that and I had all kinds of experiences, and of course I worked with kids for years, so I could do all that perfectly well, but they just looked at me with a blank stare. They said, "What are you talking about? We don't have any adults any volunteers, non-professionals in here." So, assumption number 5 at work here. So that's a big step, and is vital to get out of the textbook trap that is we are in education. Number 6, seek and take seriously and apply students' best ideas and value their opinions. The students have to have a sense of importance in the school, so that if they skip school for a day, they're going to be missed. I see students largely running their schools. What is a more valuable experience and a more stronger application of academic skills than being put to work in the front office of the school and doing more than just attendance, but all the administrative tasks from the administrative the principal's office to the cafeterias and the maintenance of the building, all kinds of things. So students have a lot of ideas. In my scout troop, I ran a very by-the-book large scout troop in which as one is supposed to. The kids run the troop, and not many, I've found, other scoutmasters ever did that because they were locked into our educational system. Sit down, I'm going to teach you how to light a fire. But they have a lot to offer. And I've often found what I call the wisdom of children to be a very powerful thing. They're able to see things very clearly and obviously, like, duh, why didn't I think of that? And lastly, number 7, trust and allow each student to the fullest extent of his or her capacity. Opportunities for leadership and positions of responsibility in the school. Well, I've already talked about, mentioned very briefly the idea of school students running their schools, particularly high school students. So those are the 7 challenges. For anybody who's interested in saying, okay, let's reinvent education, actually reinvent education. All the notion of reinventing things. Did Ford reinvent the car? Well, he did, because he saw it as a mass-produced item. Did the Wright brothers reinvent the airplane? Well, there were some people before those two that struggled trying to get up off the ground with often disastrous results. But I would like to say to invent education, because I don't think it ever was invented. I think it just kind of happened, starting in the 18th century, and when our schools, our system of education was founded, and to where it remains today. I've actually gone through all these steps myself and invented an entirely new system of education I call EdSelf, ED-SELF. I have it all fully developed and designed, and with piles of manuals and descriptive information, and that will be ready to go. But you can't see it. I'm not going to show it to you. See, I invented the damn thing, and I spent 40 years doing it, and I never even paid a dime for the thing. And I'm ready to go with the thing, but it's going to take some investment. And when I find some investors in this new industry, which I deem the next big thing, which will be bigger than Microsoft or Google or anything, when you consider the impact of the size of it in the dollars. So anyway, there you go. There's the 7 challenges, and be my guest. Even though I've already solved the dilemma, that is not to say that there will be others that will do the same thing. The Wright brothers thought they could legally prevent everybody from ever getting off the ground without paying them a royalty. Never. They tried very hard. They were pretty successful, but in the process, they hindered the whole growth of aviation, because nobody could fly without paying them. There were a lot of people fooling around with airplanes and try to do it. And so I welcome it. I think we need more than my solution. They need others, but I think that anybody that goes through the same processes that I have, particularly the 7 assumptions and the 7 challenges, they'll travel down that road and probably end up at pretty close to the same destination where I've arrived at. And we're going to need competition, because the schools of the future are going to be franchises. They're going to be national for-profit franchise organizations that will license public school districts to operate non-profit public schools, and it'll all be spelled out, and they'll have to do it by the book. I mean, it's like Burger King. You go into Burger King, you know what to expect, you know what you're going to get. And that's my notion of what we need. And there'll be, if there's only one, if EdSelf is the only one, then we're going to be back in the same trap again of monopoly running. So I look forward to seeing other competitors coming down the street and chasing after me, after us. But the prospects of developing a whole new system of education is absolutely enthralling to me. I just can't wait. Please, somebody call me. Bring if you're an educator or a think tank or anything, don't call me. I don't want to talk to educators. I've done talking to educators. Never found one who was the least bit interested in what I'm talking about. So go off and do your own thing. Do your own education reform. This is not education reform. But once we trust children, that's all it takes. And then we can get somewhere. I just last night looked at a video on CNN about the program, a 1-hour program, how we can solve the education crisis. And they looked at schools in Korea, one of the top schools in the educational system in terms of grades, and the other one in Finland, which is very different, has the same top score. Very interesting contrast between them, but they're all based on teacher-controlled education, because children really don't want to learn. You're going to have to make them do it. Once you break out of that notion, let them do their thing, and they'll eventually die off. All the schools, these weapons of mass instruction are going to hopefully go be buried in some hole somewhere. Anyway, that's number 3. Once again, it's important to look at these videos, and there will be probably 6 or 7 in order to in sequence, in order to understand what the heck I'm talking about. It's pretty radical stuff, but we can solve this dilemma once and for all. And this is not global warming. This is not the likes of global warming. Believe me, there is an answer, and let's stop messing around. The urgency of this crisis is just beyond imagining. The solution and the benefit to our nation is beyond imagining. And I hope you'll stick with me, and I appreciate your watching. Thanks a lot.